My name is Dolomar LeBron. I am the pastor of the church. This church has been a pillar in this community of East Harlem for almost 100 years. We're going to celebrate 100 years in May of 2022. So we're really excited about celebrating our centennial. And we're a very special church. So the name of our church is First Spanish United Methodist Church. But commonly, and here in East Harlem, it's known as the People's Church. And our understanding of who we are and how we live out our faith is one where we are here for the community. And, you know, what is a church if we don't work with our neighbors? And Juan, as our friend, who is literally our neighbor, we want to be a cultural hub. We want to be a spiritual hub here in East Harlem. And a lot of the work that we do always includes some kind of art, some kind of music, some kind of painting, because we understand that, like, art translates what words cannot. And so I really appreciate this event. I really appreciate having you all here. In addition to our worship services, we offer
And I think when AIDS hit the scene, we realized, because we were losing so many people, with injection drug users being a large part of that population, we had to regroup and reframe about what we thought about drugs, and particularly around opiates and injection drug use. And so many things that he said was like a punch in the belly to me, because I work with active drug users and have done for the past 30 years, and they are wonderful people, and they are your mother, your brother, your sister, your child, your neighbor, your school teacher, your nurse, your doctor. There's nothing about injection drug use that makes somebody a bad person, that makes somebody's life not worthy or worth living. So let's sort of regroup around that and what we've heard thus far, and recognize that that was before we had a new language around drug use. So in my bio it said that I'm a harm reduction activist. I'm one of the OGs in terms of the harm reduction movement, and it was a social movement, and it allowed us to rethink about drug use and drug users. It allowed us to sort of analyze critically the war on drugs and what that has done to our communities, particularly around disenfranchised populations, communities of color, people that were outside, and no longer have that sort of attitude about good drugs and bad drugs, right? So, you know, when I first learned harm reduction, the teachers would come in the room, or mentors, and would say, how many people used a drug today? And if you think about it, really everybody raised their hand, because we all had our morning cup of coffee, or we all had our cigarette outside, or we all had our antidepressant in the morning. These are all drugs. A drug is simply something that changes your state of mind, right? A mood-altering substance. So yes, alcohol, cocaine, heroin, antidepressants, cigarettes, coffee, tea, all of these are mood-altering substances. So let's regroup around that and not have the good drugs and the bad drugs. You know, the acid was a good drug, the heroin was a bad drug. Marijuana now is legal the same way that the 5 martini lunch that all the Richies on Madison Avenue had, right? So we have to, like, reframe what we think about drugs. So I'm here as a representative of the REACH Clinic. I am, a bunch of my colleagues are here in the audience as well. Giorgio is the social worker that I work with. One of our docs is in the audience, our other social workers in the audience, patient navigator, and the director of our clinic. If you want to, you can raise your hands, you don't have to. And we brought a bunch of drug information with us, which is on the table over there, and we brought Narcan kits with us. So Narcan, also known as naloxone, is what can reverse an opiate overdose. And we're happy to train folks here and have you take away with you a couple of Narcan kits so you too can be a good neighbor and help the person at the bus stop, or the person down the hall, or your brother that's in the room next to you, or your son, or your mother, or your father, and so forth. Because that's who drug users are. They're all of us. So I just had to say that because I was so...
I am friends with an artist, Jesse, who had an art piece in the art show, and I went to it, and I also was a social worker at the hospital, And I also used to do heroin and was on buprenorphine, so I'm here for a lot of reasons. And I'm honored to be here. And I also feel like I learned a lot from everyone here. I'm honored to be in this sacred space and to hear the beautiful music and the words. And when I was listening to some of the music, the first part, I was just kind of like struck by the kind of grief that's part of all of this conversation. So I kind of just saying that and the beauty that's part of this conversation, and how it's really full dimensional. And then when the percussion came out, I was also just like in reverence of the space, and of learning and being curious, and of the beautiful music. And, you know, kind of lucky to feel alive and here learning continuously. I feel like what your question about kind of